me just get my mic here. Does that sound okay? Can everybody hear me? Okay, very good. Well, thank you so much for dragging yourself out of bed this morning and being here. And thank you for Creative Mornings Seattle for inviting me to speak. I wore my very best duck sweater for this occasion, so I hope it was worth it. My name is Susanna Ryan. I am the creator of the popular Instagram comic series Seattle Walk Report, where I've been documenting my long walks through the city since 2017. I also work for the Seattle Public Library. Last month, I released my, yeah. Last month, I released my first book called Seattle Walk Report, an illustrated walking tour through 23 Seattle neighborhoods, which is now a bestseller in the Pacific Northwest somehow. Thank you. In case you're not familiar with Seattle Walk Report, here's an early example from a walk I took around Capitol Hill. On this walk, I saw 5 free couches. One person on a solo wheel almost get hit by a bus because they blew through an intersection while taking a selfie. Some exciting trash, and I got to pet a corgi. It was a good time had by all. And here's a more recent one covering a 30-mile walk I took from Seattle to Bellevue via Lake Forest Park, Kenmore, and Kirkland. On this particular walk, I heard "on your left" 35 times on the Burke-Gilman Trail. I got 8 pebbles in my shoe, and I saw a snake in Kenmore for what I think is the first time in my life. Through this comic, within the course of a year, I went from being a self-taught occasional amateur cartoonist who rarely shared my work with other people to having a book deal. If I had heard this about somebody else even a couple of years ago, I would have said, "Yay for you." And then I would have been like, yeah, but there's something else going on here, right? They must be rich or well-connected or have some fancy college degree, or maybe they sold their firstborn to a beautiful yet mysterious comics goblin. And then it happened to me. And I'm not rich or well-connected, and I don't even have a college degree. And I didn't sell my firstborn to Brad, that mysterious comics goblin. So what the heck happened? Well, spoiler alert, this talk is called Finding Inspiration in Your Own Backyard, and that is indeed what happened. And sure, as Seattle's foremost walk reporter who literally just walks around neighborhoods looking for inspiration for comics, it's easy for me to say that all you need to do to find inspiration is look in your backyard. But I'm convinced that everybody has a metaphorical backyard of unique skills and interests already inside of them that, when combined, can result in major inspiration and give them a new way to think about pursuing their creative passions. But before we get to that, let me tell you a little story. In middle school, there was a poster on the wall of one of my classrooms. It had a black and white photo of an old-timey train, and it said, in all caps, Comic Sans, "Life is about the journey, not the destination." I couldn't stand that poster. It was easy for the train to say that. He was a train. He was on a track. Even worse, he was a photo of a train, and I was a human person. It all just felt a lot more complicated than this train was leading me to believe. I am just not a risk taker, and enjoying the journey and embracing the unknown is just for other people. Thank you very much. I'm not here to smell the roses. I have other stuff to do. And besides, I'm kind of a realist. That same year when other kids were writing their career essays about becoming a world-famous DJ or world-famous dental hygienist, I wrote about my ultimate dream to live in a crummy studio apartment on Capitol Hill, to eat only cold beans because I wouldn't be able to afford a microwave, and doing page layout for Seattle's alt weekly, The Stranger. For years, I thought about that stupid train all the time, a chilly recollection. As a destination-focused adult, I settled into a job with the Seattle Public Library in 2010 and was content to do just that forever. I felt like I had a place for everything, and everything was in its place, and I really liked it that way. The train was officially a liar. But then I discovered the joy of taking long walks. If the girl glaring at that train poster was here today, hearing her future self utter the words, "I discovered the joy of taking long walks," she would think there had been some horrible mistake. For I'm not what one would describe as either slightly outdoorsy or at all athletic. A former gym teacher called me the least motivated, least athletic student she had ever seen, to my face. As an adult, walking was only an occasional means to an end that I just kind of put up with. Yet, in 2017, something compelled me to leave my apartment without a destination in mind one day. And with a single step out the front door, it all clicked. In Capitol Hill's Summit Slope Park, where I had lived blocks away from for 7 years but never even knew about, I saw a Tamagotchi hanging on a tree branch. It was magical. Then I saw a pile of goldfish crackers, and suddenly it all just hit me. It was no longer just little trash on the sidewalk. It was a little tasty mystery waiting to be unraveled. And also sidewalk trash, but also a tasty mystery. I was hooked. I couldn't stop walking after that day. For the first time in my life, I was having fun not knowing. The freedom that came with walking, to suddenly feel like I could go anywhere and do anything and see fascinating stuff all along the way, was like nothing I had ever experienced. I had been so fixated for so long on getting from point A to point B as quickly and efficiently as possible that I had never taken the time to notice this entire world hanging out right under my nose. I had never tried going outside without a destination in mind before, with nowhere to be, no expectations, and no time restraints. Letting go of those things and being open to whatever laid before me was nothing short of life-changing. Here I was, having the time of my life in my own city on a random day off of work, and the only thing it was costing me was time. As I turned down a side street in the U District, I saw a surprise golden retriever in a little bow tie. And a thought entered my head and wouldn't leave until I said it out loud. Crap, that awful train poster was right. Life is about the journey, not the destination. And I didn't know it then, but I was embarking on what would be the weirdest journey of my life so far. One day on a walk, I just randomly had an idea. What if I combined my newfound passion for walking with my lifelong love of drawing to create an illustrated travel journal of my own city? I could document anything, whether it was a cool building or a plate of sidewalk spaghetti. Just to zoom out a little bit and share a little bit more about my artistic and work background, drawing has always been a part of my life. My mom said I was born with a pencil in my hand, and I thought she meant it literally for like much too long. Way too long. One day I was like, wait a minute. From the time I was capable of scribbling, I was scribbling. This is my dad, by the way. I don't know what it says about him that this is what's going on, but anyway. When Poppy needed a cute birthday card from his grandchildren, I was so there. I continued to draw throughout my life, but never really wanted to pursue it as part of a career or a side business of some kind. When your hobby becomes your job, you run the risk of turning something you really love into kind of a slog that makes you a little queasy. To be completely honest, I was also reluctant about widely sharing my artistic abilities because compared to other people, I wasn't really that good or that remarkable. As I was working after high school, trying to decide what I wanted to do with my life, I heard about a program at Seattle Central Community College called Publishing Arts. It was perfect. I would learn pre-press and print production skills in a 2-year technical program and build on some of the skills I had already developed on my own. I could work in a creative field in a technical capacity, just like I had dreamed of in my rather grim career essay. I applied to the program and was accepted, so I quit my job to dedicate myself to this fun quest in higher learning. A short while in, we found out that the program had been basically canceled due to budget cuts, but we basically wouldn't be getting our money back. The first year would be a sad little shell of its former self, and the second year wasn't going to be happening. One of the instructors saw my existing set of skills and believed in me a little bit, so through him, I got an internship at a print production place here in Seattle. I was responsible for going through a hardware catalog and comparing the SKU numbers in the hardware catalog to another list of SKU numbers, and then renaming the files to match the SKU numbers. It was so much fun. On slightly better days, I got to color correct buttons on pictures of sweaters, just the buttons. They wouldn't let me touch the rest of the sweater. Only buttons here. During this time, I also got a job with the Seattle Public Library, and I reached a crossroad where I needed to decide whether I wanted to continue to pursue print production or pursue the library. And even though cross-referencing SKU numbers is a ton of fun, I decided to go with the library. Years later, when the idea for what would later become Seattle Walk Report popped into my head, I thought I'd keep it to myself like most of my creative pursuits. Or more realistically, I thought I'd hold myself back from even trying. I am absolutely no stranger to self-doubt. And self-doubt has prevented me from trying many things in my life. Self-doubt is what made me and that train disagree so much. Train led a confident life, comfortable in the process of it all, just along for the ride. And I've just always felt like 3 kids in a trench coat, getting away with something. But a couple days went by and I just couldn't get this Seattle Walk Report idea out of my head. I can talk myself out of anything, but I just couldn't find a way to talk myself after this. And after making the first one, I just knew. It felt kind of wrong not to share it with other people. So I downloaded Instagram for the first time in my life and just made an account and chucked it up there. As I kept walking and making the comic, my audience found me through word of mouth and algorithms. It was really unexpected. It felt like it was becoming one of those things that you hear about, you know? And even then, I was uncharacteristically calm, both internally and externally. My dear friend, self-doubt was nowhere to be found. Where was it? 10 months into making the comic, the new editorial director for Sasquatch Books did what the kids today called slid into my DMs on Instagram and asked if I'd be interested in talking about making a book together. It was completely unexpected, a daunting and exciting proposition, and still somehow I just felt super confident about the whole thing. I'm not saying that the book didn't have its fair share of challenges. I had never come close to doing a project of this size before, not even close. I knew I wanted it to be all new content rather than a bunch of repurposed Instagram comics, so it meant walking a lot and gathering a bunch of new material. In 2.5 months, I walked 65 miles, wrote and penciled a 176-page book, all while working my regular job at the library. But through it all, the challenges were more about time management and not letting my arm fall off from drawing too much, and less about feeling completely inadequate. It finally dawned on me why my self-doubt was suddenly silent. I was doing something that was so totally me, that so perfectly combined some of the best parts of myself, that no one else was doing the way that I was doing. I finally didn't have anybody else to compare myself to. There are certainly way better walkers out there and way better cartoonists, but there are no better artists making comics collecting mundane sights from walks around Seattle right now. I'm the only one. I realize that you don't need to be the best at everything in order to be completely irreplaceable, which is to be the best at being exactly who you are. And younger me just rolled her eyes so hard at that statement. I mean it though. We're so good at comparing ourselves to other people and their talents and skills that we don't spend nearly enough time nurturing and thinking about our own. 2.5 years ago, I didn't see it. I had a seemingly unrelated set of overlooked interests and talents, a love for Seattle history, walking, drawing, animals, libraries, sitting around, making stuff. Individually, they didn't amount to much. No one thing was the strongest or most extraordinary of them all. But once I connected the dots between these seemingly disconnected things and combined them together, the result was Seattle Walk Report. And inside of you right now is a completely unique combination of talents, skills, interests, and experiences. I can guarantee you that no one else in this room has the combination that you have. The problem is that we fail to see what is already inside of us, and if we do see it, we can be quick to dismiss or devalue it. Like, say you love dogs, watching Netflix and writing poetry. But you're kind of self-conscious about the poetry because you've read some really great poems in your life and these just aren't them. I have good news. As of right this second, no one has a blog where they meticulously document every single dog that has ever appeared in a Netflix show and write haikus about them. There's a completely untapped market there. Get on it right now. If you can get connected to the Wi-Fi, go for it. And you don't need to be the best poet or know your Alaskan Malamutes from your Siberian Huskies to let your unique passion shine through. And people really do respond to passion and authenticity. Or maybe you spend your free time learning the names of former vice presidential candidates' mothers and you really love cotton candy, which, by the way, talk to me afterwards because I'd love to just talk to you about that. I have good news for you too. No one has an Instagram account where they recreate vice presidential candidates' mothers and cotton candy. I would follow that account so hard. If you're having trouble finding your thing, ask yourself these questions with an honest and open mind. Your answers may be the same for some of them, or they may be different. Just try to sit with it all. What is something I really love to do, just because? What is one ability that I feel confident in, whether I use it on a daily basis or not? What is a topic that I'm passionate and somewhat knowledgeable about? And what interests can I just not stay away from? I'll give you an example from my own life. Almost nobody knows this, I doubt even my own mother. But for some reason, I've been tracking box office numbers every single week for the last 16 years. I think there are probably 3 people in the world who know this about me, and now all of you. I don't know why I do it, but then there I am the next week on Monday, back on boxofficemojo.com, seeing what the highest grossing movies were that weekend. And I don't even really care about movies that much. I only care about box office numbers. And while I went with Seattle Walk Report rather than Seattle Box Office Report, which sounds super fun, this is an interest of mine that hides in plain sight and could be useful for something someday. Finally, ask yourself, is there a way I can combine a few of these things together to make something stronger than the individual parts? If you find a way to connect and combine these parts of yourself, the result is almost certainly something very unique, something people won't get anywhere else, and something you're incredibly passionate about. And the more you do it, the more your existing skill sets will develop and just get better. I've gotten way more confident as an artist in the relatively short amount of time I've been creating Seattle Walk Report. If you're currently putting yourself out there in some creative way, whether it's writing or music or illustrating, and you're feeling frustrated, fold in another interest or part of your identity and just see what happens. The pool of people doing the same thing as you just got way smaller. And say that through this line of thinking, you come up with an idea that just feels too interesting to ignore. Now is the time to rip the Band-Aid off and just start. I will say this now. In my experience, taking the first step is the hardest part, and what will undoubtedly be a series of hard parts. Deciding that we are worth it, that our talents have actual value, that our dorky interests can be so much more than just dorky interests, is a tough nut to crack. And the only reason why I'm here today giving this talk is because I finally said enough to self-doubt. It's really hard, and it's really worth it. Start anywhere. Simply having a good idea, or even a good idea, a cute logo, and a marketing strategy doesn't make stuff happen. You need to work hard and commit to the project, even when it seems like the world doesn't really care. Hopefully, if this is something you're passionate about, you're doing it for yourself first and foremost, and not with lofty ambitions of fame and fortune and book deals. When I started on Instagram, my audience was my mom, 5 coworkers, and a spam account advertising t-shirts with eagles on them. And yet, I brought my best anyway. This is where slowing down, being open to possibility, and letting go of my irrational anger over train posters got me. Here today with all of you, it's really cool. With a best-selling book that celebrates the journey, not the destination. With a whole new understanding of what is possible when we embrace our talents instead of coming up with reasons why not. So I want to share my proposal for a future inspirational train poster. Embrace who you are, or just like, try to. Or just think about it for now. And I can't really deal with that font, so let me see here. No. No. I guess that's fine. And maybe instead of this train, we can go with a little squirrel. Okay, perfect. Okay. And this might be a little bit too real for 9:32 a.m. on a Friday on what was supposed to be a fun presentation about sidewalk trash and finding inspiration, but it feels really important. The truth of the matter is, everything that makes the Seattle Walk Report comic work, whether it's the drawing, the humor, or the mundane weirdness of it all, represent huge parts of who I am. And yet, they are things that at some point or another in my life, I didn't really like or value about myself. My drawings were too basic, my humor and interests too obtuse. I really and truly just wanted to be like everybody else, and I just wasn't, no matter how hard I tried. The second I leaned into these things and embraced them, instead of shying away, unbelievable things started happening. That's not an accident. I only recently came to terms with what is a fundamental truth. No matter how hard you try to fight it, you can really only be yourself. The sooner we can find it within ourselves to begin the process of letting go of the comparisons, of the feelings that we will never be good enough, or talented enough, or any other one of the 31 flavors of self-doubt, the sooner we can begin to recognize and celebrate what we do have, and maybe even channel those gifts into a creative pursuit all of our own. What I realize now is that the train was a total liar, but not for the reasons I suspected. Life is only a journey. I was on the journey then, whether I wanted to admit it or not, and I'm still on the journey now. Reaching some idea of a destination just is a temporary stop on your way to newer, weirder journeys. Every one of you already has a backyard full of creative possibilities, and you just need to take the first step. Thank you.
Yeah, project.
So the slide with the questions to ask yourself to find your thing.
Uh-huh.
Are you selling that as a poster?
No, but I will be in about 20 minutes after I get out of here. Thank you.
I'll get one.
Cool. Thank you. I think I'm the question picker now. Yes, over here.
I was wondering how you create your very compelling presentations.
So the question is, how do I create my very compelling presentations? Their words, not mine. And do I practice? I just start writing and see what happens out of it. I don't really like developing some sort of outline or things that I want to say. I just kind of let it flow. My most public speaking experience was in high school. I was part of the, are they laughing at me? Oh my God. This is my nightmare. Anyway, I did some public speaking in high school. I was captain of the debate team. But as an adult, I really haven't done much public speaking, so this is actually my third time talking in front of strangers. I basically just write, and as I'm writing, I think of kind of what would be a punctuation point, maybe, where like a slide could turn, or there could be some interesting information. So it's kind of just a process to see what flows naturally out of it. Yeah. Questions? In the middle there.
So there's this great philosophical practice called Dorit, and it's kind of what you do. It's to take a walk without intention or direction, and let, as specifically in a city context, and let the city speak to you and guide you. And I was curious if there was a part of Seattle that really speaks to you.
Oh, that's a good question. So the question is there a part of Seattle that really speaks to me? It all speaks to me. It's hard to pick a favorite. I definitely have places where I basically know I can go and get some content for the comic. Capitol Hill is one of those places. Even now, it's like so strange. The other day, actually it was probably, I say the other day about everything, but this was probably several months ago now. I was walking along Broadway and there was this woman in a beautiful hat with 3 Pomeranians and this like really expensive purse. And she was talking to a man in a skeleton costume. And they were talking passionately about their shared hatred of spiders. And it was just so cute and so like, and I didn't end up making a comic about it, but it was just like this nice little human moment. So Capitol Hill always delivers for me. Honestly, though, I find all of Seattle weird and interesting and different. And when you slow down and look at all the tiny details, these little portraits of the neighborhood appear that you definitely wouldn't see in a car or if you're not paying attention to the little things. So it's just an interesting experience to let the neighborhood talk to you and tell you whatever story it wants to tell you that day. So, yeah. In the front there with my book.
Would you like a mic ball?
So with the success of the Seattle Walk Report, have you thought about, unintended, taking the show on the road?
So will I take the show on the road now that I've Seattle Walk Report? You know, I think one of the strengths of Seattle Walk Report is just kind of how passionate I am about Seattle, how much I know about it, how much I care to know about it. It's really fun when I go to other cities now that I'm a walker because all I want to do is walk. And I've had the best times just walking around and not really planning anything. I feel like it could work under the right circumstances in other cities. I think right now I'm just going to keep walking Seattle until I die. And, you know, I just like it too much. So in the shirt.
Do you have any recommendations for comfortable walking shoes?
Yeah.
And have you worn out your shoes? Like how long do they?
So the question is, do I have any recommendations for comfortable walking shoes? And do I wear shoes out a lot? I do wear shoes out pretty frequently. I feel weird talking about this stuff because I just want everyone to know that I'm not sponsored. I sure would like to be because it would save me some money. So these things that I recommend really just are recommended based on my own experiences, okay? So in fall and winter, I wear Blundstone boots. They're both waterproof and very comfortable right out the box. I don't even need to wear insoles with them. They last for quite a while, I've found. I think I've been on this pair with how much walking I do for about 2 years. I'm just gonna keep standing like this. This is me, you know. I'm embracing myself. In the summertime or the cooler weather or warmer weather months, what I really recommend is just having a really good pair of insoles. There's a brand called Superfeet insoles, and they're about twice as expensive as normal insoles, but they're twice as worth it. And I found that it kind of doesn't matter what shoes I wear as long as the inserts can fit. That's the ticket. And also just wool socks are really helpful, and I really need that insole sponsorship, you guys. If anybody knows anybody, we'll make some cute dog insoles and you can just walk on dogs all day. Yes. So the question is, do I take notes or sketch while I walk, or do I just remember? It's a good question. One thing, if you guys are interested in this and you didn't attend my book presentation at the library, if you just do a search for Seattle Channel, Seattle Walk Report, they recorded the whole thing. And that kind of gets a little bit more into my process of things. So that might be an interesting watch if you're into that. So basically what I do is I just take a notepad with me when I go out walking, and I just take notes about things that I see. And then I also take a lot of pictures on my phone. If there's something, so I really like to include dogs in the comic, but I don't want to be the person being like, I'm going to take a picture of your dog. So when it comes to stuff like that, I usually do a quick drawing on the spot just so I can make sure I captured their essence as closely as possible. And then later on, I just sit down, I look over all the notes that I took, and I just kind of figure out what's the best or what would make the most interesting comic and just go from there. So it is mostly not drawing while I walk. It's mostly after the fact, but sometimes I do draw when I walk. Yes.
Has anyone ever contacted you about seeing himself before? Like that was totally me with your comment.
Yeah. So the question is, has anyone ever contacted me after seeing themselves in the comic? Because sometimes I do like stuff that I overheard, or maybe somebody might know, oh, I did drop those peanut shells or whatever. I've had a few people suspect that something was them, or say, oh, that looks an awful lot like my dog. Can you tell me the exact intersection and time of day and what the dog owner was? And I'm like, I don't know. I do think it's kind of fun just to think about how in this book, I think there's something like 20 dogs, and all of them are somebody's dog, and now it's in a book, and they don't even know it, maybe, or they might see it and be like, oh my God. So anyway, it's just kind of weird and cool. I feel like I got off track there, but no one's ever been, oh, definitively that was me. One time I talked about how I saw an exact doppelganger of me, and then I had 40,000 people who looked just like me sending me pictures of themselves being like, was it me? You know, so. Yes.
You said that you opened Instagram for the first time and started posting. How did you determine your posting schedule, and how often did you know what time of day that was?
So the question is, when I started on Instagram, did I come up with some sort of schedule for my post or time of day or anything like that? I didn't. When I first started, I was more focused on just getting it out of me. I wasn't as you could kind of see by how it's evolved, I just wasn't spending as much time on it, and was more kind of like a quick 15-minute here I go kind of thing. And then I just started taking it more seriously. I didn't really have I didn't read like articles about how to maximize your Instagram following or times of day to post or anything like that. It kind of evolved as things went on, and I realized like, oh yeah, I guess because most of my people who follow me are from Seattle, if it's 6:30 at night on a Tuesday, that might be a good time. You know, just kind of like seeing or thinking about my own life, you know, people might see something more then than at noon when everybody's, I don't know, working or whatever. So I don't know, I just kind of followed my gut throughout the whole thing and didn't really come up with a master plan or thing. It seems like before all the book stuff happened, I was posting about once a week, but it just kind of depended on the walk or what was going on, so yeah. Yes, I should move over to the other side of the room, I'm sorry. Yes.
Creating a tour where people walk with you and take their drawings
Uh-huh.
But I also wanted to just take 2 seconds to read a couple of lines of a poem that I thought of, and then I want to ask you an education question.
Ooh.
It's a poem called Cargo, and it's, if you simplify this, you have gifts. The world needs your gifts. You must deliver them. The world may not know it is starving, but the hungry know, and you will find you, and they will find you when you discover your cargo and start to give it away.
Aw.
It's a great poem. So my point is, my question is, what do you think in the education system can help us better deliver the gifts that we have?
So the question is, in the education system, what can we do to better or lean into the gifts that we have? Is that basically what you're asking? You know, I may not have the best answer for that. I do know that in my own life, people at various points believed in me, and maybe even though I didn't necessarily, I don't want to say deserve it, but I was kind of a atypical student. I wasn't the best in the class, but I think there have been various points in my life where somebody saw something in me. I think even about at Seattle Central Community College, the teacher who shoved me into an internship, even though I really didn't have on paper the skills to do that. Or I think about even at Sasquatch, the editor who reached out to me kind of took a huge leap of faith on the whole thing. So I think my answer is kind of, if you're in a position where maybe you hire people, or maybe you are a teacher, or maybe you have some ability to give opportunities to people, just think about it a little bit. I think that so many people have so many talents that just aren't really on a resume or can't really be put on a resume. And if you see somebody in something and you have the opportunity to give them an opportunity, I think sometimes people can really, really shine. And I just think that that's the takeaway. I'll never forget the names of the people who gave me opportunities, even though I wasn't necessarily the most qualified person on the planet for them. So I think that's what I have to say about that. I hope that's an okay answer. Okay, one last question, and I'm going to this side of the room. Yes. Yes. So the question is who my artistic influences are, and I did talk about this in my library presentation a little bit. There was this drawing book that we randomly had around my house as a kid. I'm not sure where it came from. It was called The Copycat Drawing Book by somebody named Sally Kilroy. And the illustrations are super simple. I looked it up not too long ago, and at the time it got really bad reviews. It was like, this is an early start in learning to draw the wrong way. And these are cheerful but uninspiring. That's what they said about it. But it really, 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 if you look at that book and look at what I do, it's kind of scary sometimes. Like, I still draw suns and cars and clouds and all these little things the same way that Sally Kilroy taught me how to draw. So I think she was a huge influence on me, along with other picture books and that sort of thing. I wasn't the biggest comics reader as a kid. I would always read like the Seattle Times comics page, or in the Seattle PI, there was this thing called, it was this weird thing where people would write in egg puns. I don't know if anybody remembers this. It was called like the Excellent Family or something like that. And it was just this woman, and she would be like Leonardo DiCaprio egg. Like, it wasn't even that good. And then children would draw and submit their own eggs. And I was always too nervous to submit my great idea, the 3 egg migos. So, anyway, it's like all my life there have been these things that are kind of comics adjacent that have influenced me. And certainly as I got a little bit older, there were some comics that really inspired me. There's a web comic that ran from about 2000 to 2010 called Achewood that really made a big impact on me. And just here and there, I was picking things up, but I wasn't really diehard about any one particular person. I was kind of just picking up influences from everywhere. Cool. Well, thank you.